I vividly remember the day I enlisted in the Army, fresh out of college, eager to serve my country. The military's structured life seemed to fit me perfectly. Over the years, I found purpose in my duties, but each deployment took a toll on my personal life. By the time I retired after nearly 30 years of service, I'd left behind pieces of myself that I wasn't sure I could reclaim. Clara and I had faced countless challenges together, raising our 2 kids amidst the chaos of military life. Our son, Ethan, was in college, and our daughter, Laura, had joined the Navy, much to my dismay as a retired Army colonel. Despite thinking our bond was strong, adjusting to civilian life revealed how fragile trust could be. We lived in a modest cul-de-sac, surrounded by neighbors with lives that seemed just as ordinary. At our first block party as empty nesters, Clara and I met the people who would shape the next chapter of our lives. She got cornered by Frank, a chatty neighbor, and signaled for me to save her. But I was busy talking to Allison, a fit single mom whose energy was captivating. When Clara's signals became more urgent, I finally introduced Allison to Frank to free her. Clara wasn't pleased with how long it had taken me. On our way home, we exchanged polite nods with the Mitchells, a younger couple across the street who shared a glance that seemed conspiratorial. My years in Army intelligence made me suspicious, but I brushed it off. I wanted to focus on reconnecting with Clara before her upcoming trip with Doctors Without Borders. Military life had strained our marriage. During my career, there were moments when we almost divorced. Deep down, I knew something had happened during one of those rough patches. Infidelity was common in military marriages, though no one liked to talk about it. There was a time I suspected Clara had cheated while I was away. A tip from an ex-girlfriend, Samantha, who managed a hotel near Clara's work, raised questions about her frequent visits to the Red Roof Inn. I even hired an investigator, but it turned out Clara had parked there because her hospital was under renovation. Still, her early arrivals at work stopped when I returned, leaving me with lingering doubts. My time in Korea had created a rift between us. A year apart had left a gap we couldn't close, and I realized our marriage wasn't unbreakable. Though I never discovered if there had been another man, Clara seemed committed to rebuilding what we had, and so did I. I transitioned to Army intelligence, giving up my love for flying to reduce the risks and give Clara some peace of mind. But multiple deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan after September 11th still took their toll. When I retired, my consulting job paid better than staying in the Army, and I was able to be present for our kids' graduations, with Clara by my side. She continued her nursing career and rose to the top of her field, working closely with Dr. Miles Anderton, a confident and talented surgeon. I noticed the way he looked at Clara and couldn't ignore the uneasy feeling it gave me. When I brought it up, Clara admitted that Miles flirted with her at work, but insisted it was harmless. She reminded me of my professional relationship with Leah, a CIA colleague who had shown interest in me before I deployed to Iraq. The conversation didn't go well, and the tension lingered in the background of our lives. Now, Clara was preparing for a 6-week trip to South America with Doctors Without Borders. I wasn't thrilled about her spending so much time with Dr. Miles, but I didn't want to hold her back. "I've stayed home for you many times," she said. "Now it's your turn to wait for me." What could I say to that? The night before her flight, she spent the evening packing and talking to her mom. The next morning, she was gone. No goodbye. No note. I checked for messages, but found none. My coffee that morning tasted bitter as I tracked her flight to Colombia, hoping she'd call or text when she landed. She didn't. I sent her a brief message, "Hope you're okay. Nice way to leave, Clara." Speaks volumes. No reply. Running usually helped clear my head, but tonight, the frustration wouldn't let go. I pushed myself harder than usual, sprinting the final stretch toward our cul-de-sac. By the time I reached the familiar row of houses, I was out of breath and drenched in sweat. That's when I heard Victor Mitchell's voice calling out. "Evening, Rick," he shouted from his backyard. I turned and saw him leaning on the fence, a beer in hand. His wife, Lydia, was tending to their garden under the dim glow of the porch light. "Nice view, huh?" Victor joked, gesturing vaguely toward his wife. I didn't dignify it with a response, brushing off his attempt at humor. "I need a shower," I said curtly. Victor laughed. "Stop by later. Even without Clara, we can throw some steaks on the grill, have a few drinks." Lydia smiled at me then, soft and lingering, with an energy I couldn't quite place. Her subtle movements, the way her eyes held mine for just a second too long, added to the strange vibe. I nodded politely and kept walking, taking the long way home. The house felt emptier than ever when I finally got back. Clara's silence was eating at me. No call, no message, nothing. After a quick shower, I sat in the living room, staring at my phone. The hours dragged by. When the darkness outside became too heavy, I finally gave in and called her hotel. The manager, Diego Espinoza, answered. His tone was polite but guarded. Yes, senor. She checked in earlier, he confirmed. Can you check on her and have her call me? I asked, my voice tight. Of course, senor, he said, though something about his tone didn't sit right with me. When I hung up, I scrolled through my contacts, landing on Paige Thompson, one of Clara's closest colleagues. Maybe she'd know what was going on. Before I could call, my phone buzzed. Hello, Diego? I answered quickly. Senor Weston, he said, sounding less polite now. Your wife isn't in her room. Maybe she's out with some of the other ladies. His hesitation only made my unease grow. Diego, I said slowly, can you tell me Dr. Miles Anderton's room number? There was a pause. Then, reluctantly, he said, 514. Do you want me to call him? No, I replied, my stomach twisting. Clara's room was 515, right next to his. One more thing, I added. Can you connect me to Paige Thompson's room? Diego sighed but agreed. I waited on hold, my heart pounding. When Paige finally answered, I could tell she'd been tipped off. Rick, she said, her tone defensive. Why are you calling me? Don't play games, Paige. Clara's room is next to Miles, and she's not in it. You know why. There was a pause before I heard a man's voice in the background. Who is that? He asked. Maybe I should ask your husband about the man in your room, Paige, I said coldly. I have his number. Rick, please don't, she said, her voice dropping to a plea. Then tell me where Clara is, I snapped, or I'm calling him right now. Reluctantly, Paige transferred me to Miles' room. The phone rang, and Miles answered. Paige, he said casually. Sorry to interrupt, I said sharply, but this is Rick Weston. I need to talk to my wife. There was a long pause before he responded, his tone changing. Why are you asking me? If you value your hands, I said coldly, put Clara on the phone. Now. There was muffled noise, then Clara's voice came through. Give me the phone, Miles, she said sharply. Rick, she began, her tone irritated. I didn't expect this conversation tonight. What are you doing in his room, Clara? I asked, my voice low. Why didn't you respond to my texts? What do you think? She snapped. I was having a good evening after a stressful day, until you called. Just tell me the truth, I said. Are you and Miles having an affair? She paused before telling Miles to leave the room. After the door clicked shut, there was a long silence. Rick, she finally said, I've been a good wife and mother. I'll be home in 6 weeks, and we can talk then. But right now, just let me have this. Just once. I froze. If I don't mind? I said bitterly. You didn't even have the decency to talk to me before you left. All that would have done is start a fight, she said, her voice tired. You think? I replied sarcastically. Maybe I would have asked you to stay. I might have stayed, she admitted softly, but I needed this. Just once, to feel alive. And Miles? He's just a distraction, Rick. I don't love him. How convenient, I muttered. There was a knock in the background. I have to go, she said quickly. Rick, I love you. I love you too, Clara, I replied, my voice flat. But I'm not sure I'm still in love with you. I hung up. A knock at the door startled me. When I opened it, Lydia Mitchell stood there, holding a bottle of wine. Evening, Rick, she said, her voice warm. Hello, Lydia, I replied, noticing how stunning she looked. Are you going to let me in? She asked, raising an eyebrow. After a pause, I stepped aside. She handed me the wine, red Moscato, my favorite. I thought you might need some company, she said with a smile. I hesitated before answering, not sure how good I'll be, but I do have some questions. Ask away, she replied, searching for glasses. I poured the wine and asked, Where's Victor? Out playing cards, she said lightly. We sat in the living room, the tension thick in the air. Lydia crossed her legs, her eyes meeting mine. Rick, she began, I think we need to talk. Our gazes locked, and for a moment, the unspoken hung between us. Let's sit, I suggested, gesturing toward the couch. Lydia nodded, her expression thoughtful. This was going to be a long night. She's in South America with her doctor boyfriend, I said coldly, locking eyes with Lydia. Then she told me to talk to you. So let's stop the games. What did you and Clara plan before she left? Lydia took a long sip of her wine, as if gathering courage. Clara and I ran into each other at the mall some time ago, she began. We ended up having drinks at my place. I don't know where you and Victor were, but we got to talking. I opened up about my marriage and my husband's interests. She paused, clearly debating how much to reveal. I stayed silent, letting her continue. My husband likes to share me, she admitted finally. Share you? I asked, piecing things together. With other men, she confirmed, her tone even. I told Clara because I wanted her to know. I thought maybe she'd let me pursue you. And how did Clara take that? I asked, incredulous. At first, she was shocked, Lydia said, setting her glass down. She listened quietly as I explained everything. Later, she agreed, on one condition. I raised an eyebrow. What condition? That it only happens while she's out of the country. I scoffed, unable to believe what I was hearing. So Clara never discussed any of this with me? No, Lydia admitted. She dropped that bombshell on me tonight, just as you were on your way over. Interesting timing, I said dryly. I just found out about her and Dr. Miles tonight. Lydia shook her head. Victor and I have an open marriage, but we never go behind each other's backs. So Victor knows you're here? I asked, seeking clarity. Yes, she confirmed. He knows I'm attracted to you, and he's fine with it. You've had other partners before? Just one, on and off for 2 years, she said casually. Mostly, we meet men out of town for adventures. Victor likes to watch. I shook my head in disbelief. How long have you two been doing this? For years, she replied as if it were perfectly normal. And Clara agreed to this arrangement? Yes, but only while she's away, Lydia said. Did she mention anything about what she'd be doing while she's gone? I pressed further. No, she admitted, but I had a feeling she might be doing something similar. Maybe giving me permission to be with you was her way of easing her conscience. I wish she'd talk to me, I said, the weight of everything pressing down on me. Lydia stood and handed me an envelope. Clara left this for you, she said quietly. Before we do anything, I think you should read it. She disappeared into the restroom, leaving me alone with the letter. The envelope was simply labeled, Mark. I took a deep breath and opened it. Dear Mark, by now, you know I'm breaking our vows with Miles. But before you judge me, remember Deirdre in the Middle East. I have no proof, but I'm almost certain you slept with her. I studied interrogation techniques when I helped you with your Army intelligence classes, and I noticed how you looked away whenever I mentioned her. You're a terrible liar, Mark. When Miles first touched me, I didn't tell you. Maybe I should have, just like I should have had affairs during those lonely years when you were off playing soldier. I was tempted, especially when you were in Korea, but I stayed true to you then. Deirdre visited me while you were in the Middle East, and her smugness confirmed my suspicions. I'm almost sure you were unfaithful. If I'm wrong, then I'm the first to cheat, but I doubt it. So here's the deal. While I'm gone, I'm not your wife, and you're not my husband. We both have a 6-week hall pass. If we still love each other when I return, we can move forward. If not, we'll mourn what we had. I'm choosing this, Mark. Of my own free will. I don't love Miles, but I find him attractive. He'll be nothing but a memory if you still want me. If you love someone, set them free. I'll be back in 6 weeks. Meet me at the Ambassador Hotel near the airport if you want to try again. If not, don't come to the airport. Just walk away. Love always, Clara. P.S. Lydia was supposed to get tested for STDs before tonight. Make sure she shows you the results. Miles and I were tested before we left, and I'll get tested again before I return. If we're going to make this work, this will be our first step toward trust. I set the letter down, stunned. Lydia returned, refilling her glass. Are you okay? She asked, her voice soft. I will be, I replied, though I wasn't sure I believed it. She nodded and sat down beside me, this time closer. Her eyes lingered on mine, searching for something. So, Mark, she asked finally, her voice low, what do we do now? Right now? Nothing, I said firmly. You and Clara planned this for 2 weeks, and I'm just hearing about it tonight. It's clear she's been up to something for a while. Am I right? I guess so, Lydia admitted, looking down. She wasn't used to someone resisting her charms. If I were single, it might be different, I continued. But I don't like being played, especially by someone I've loved for most of my life. Lydia nodded, her voice quiet. So, I guess nothing is going to happen between us? Not tonight, I said. I need time to think before I make any decisions. Will we see you for dinner in a day or two? She asked hesitantly. I don't know, Lydia. I need to sort things out. Okay, she said softly. Just know, I'm here for you. Thanks, I replied, my mind already somewhere else. Lydia, I said, standing at the door, good night and thanks for the wine. She gave me a small smile and walked away. I couldn't help but notice the confidence in her stride. But as soon as the door closed, my focus snapped back to Clara's letter. I reread it carefully. The contradictions were glaring. She was furious about Deirdre, even though she had no proof I cheated. Yet she was perfectly fine arranging this thing with Lydia for me. Yes, Deirdre and I got close in the Middle East, but we never crossed the line. It was an emotional moment after an ambush, nothing like Clara's premeditated affair with Miles, or this entire setup with Lydia. At the time, I had felt guilty, but now, after reading her letter, I wondered, why didn't she want me meeting her at the airport? Why insist on a hotel? Then it hit me. She was planning something bigger. I scanned the room, my gut screaming at me. Could she have bugged the house? I needed answers, and I had the resources to find them. My first call was to Alan Williams, my top tech expert at Acme Global. Alan, it's Mark. I need your expertise. Understood, boss, he said. Give me 45 minutes. I'll bring my gear. Next, I called Ernesto Toro, my trusted contact in Bogota. Hola, Senor Mark, he greeted. Ernesto, I need your help. Clara's at the Mirador Hotel in Bogota with Miles Anderton. I need surveillance, audio, video, and pictures. Understood. I'll handle it, he said, turning serious. Daily updates? Yes. Let me know if you need extra funds. I'll be in touch soon, he promised. Alan arrived quickly, scanning the house for hidden devices. In 30 minutes, he found wireless cameras in the smoke detectors, along with microphones and spyware on my computer. Whoever did this wanted full access, Alan muttered. Disable the cameras in my office, but leave the rest, I instructed. Let them keep watching. I'll make it boring. Alan smirked, removing key devices. They might still have a key to your house, he warned. Change the locks and security codes. I'll handle it tonight, I said, already reaching for my phone. As soon as Alan left, I called a locksmith and logged into Clara's email. Her credentials were still saved. Normally, I respected her privacy, but tonight, I wasn't in the mood for respect. The first thing I found? Emails from Miles. Playful, intimate, sometimes outright suggestive. I didn't read them all at once. I'd seen enough. I exported all the emails, saving them to a thumb drive for later review. There were also messages between Clara and our kids, but nothing noteworthy. A knock at the door signaled the locksmith's arrival. As he got to work changing the locks, I turned back to the computer. One email thread between Clara and Miles had a subject line that caught my attention, lawyer. I clicked. The thread confirmed everything. Clara had spoken to a divorce lawyer, reviewed the proposed settlement, and decided to move forward, despite her lawyer advising against it. Miles seemed surprised, questioning her decision. After all, she had claimed she still loved me and intended to stay with me. Her response made my blood run cold. Who the hell are you? And why are you following me? I demanded. He stammered. I don't know what you're talking about. Nonsense, I said, narrowing my eyes. You've been tailing me since I left my house. Are you the private investigator my wife hired? I don't know what you mean, he lied. I clenched my fists. Let's cut the crap. Maybe I should teach you a lesson. What do you think? His face went pale. Please, don't. I'll leave, okay? Good, I said, my voice like steel. Because if I see you again, I won't be as friendly. He muttered a nervous, I got it. I'm sorry, before peeling out of the parking lot. Inside the bar, the bartender took one look at me and smirked. Trouble? He asked. Yeah, I muttered, taking a sip of my beer. Can't live with him, can't shoot him, he joked. I chuckled, shaking my head. After finishing my meal, I grabbed another beer from the fridge when I got home and stepped outside for a cigar. As I smoked, a plan began forming in my mind. I checked my calendar. I searched Google. I picked a date. 10 days from now. I'd need to make some calls. Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from Ernesto. All set. First update in the morning. Please send $250 for expenses. I wired the money instantly. Thanks. Talk tomorrow. That night, curiosity got the better of me. I walked into Clara's side of the bedroom and pulled open her nightstand drawer. Her wedding ring sat inside. I slipped off my own and placed it beside hers. Then, looking straight at the hidden camera in the smoke detector, I flipped it off. Let her wonder what that meant. The next morning, I checked her email. A new message appeared, Bin. The email outlined everything I had done the night before. How I had found the surveillance, caught the investigator tailing me, and even flipped off the camera. They were tracking my every move. I marked the email as unread and logged out. After work, I opened Ernesto's first batch of footage. It wasn't anything explicit, but it was damning. Clara and Miles at dinner. Clara laughing, leaning into him, her body language unmistakable. At one point, she smirked. He's probably with that girl next door, she told Miles. I'll have video of it tomorrow for my lawyer. I paused the video. So this was the game she was playing. I called Ernesto immediately. Senor Mark, he greeted. Thanks for the money. Did you see the footage? I did, I said, exhaling. Listen, I have a plan I want to discuss with you. I laid out my idea. Ernesto listened carefully before responding. It can be done, but why 10 days? I smirked. That's our 25th wedding anniversary, I said. I want to make sure she never forgets it. Ernesto laughed. You're one tough hombre, Senor Mark. After the call, I scrolled through my contacts. I found a number I hadn't dialed in years. Deirdre. I hesitated for only a moment before calling. To my surprise, she answered. Mark Weston. It's been forever. We talked briefly, and I gave her a short version of what had happened. When I read her what Clara had written about her, Deirdre's tone changed instantly. That lying witch, she snapped. I never said anything like that. We were just a team, watching each other's backs. Thanks, Deirdre, I said. I regret what happened between us, but none of it justifies what Clara is doing now. Mark, you have nothing to apologize for, she said. We were under extreme stress. I don't regret it. So what's your next move? She asked. I told her my plan. There was a long silence. Then, finally, she spoke. I like it, she said slowly. I really like it. I've got someone in Colombia handling part of it, I told her. But I need access to some things I can't get myself. I think I can help with that, she said, her voice sharp. When do you want this done? I smiled. In 10 days. On our 25th anniversary, I replied. Deirdre chuckled. Oh, you're wicked. Consider it my anniversary gift to myself, I joked. We both laughed before her tone softened. You know, I've thought about you a lot since the war in the Middle East. I've thought about you too, I admitted. We made a great team. I haven't connected with anyone like that since. A hint of sadness crept into her voice. Yeah, same. I'm sorry to hear that. That's life, she sighed. I've been thinking about retiring. They've got me pushing papers now. If you do retire, I know a place that would hire you, I suggested. She perked up. Would I be working with a certain retired Army colonel? Definitely. She laughed. That's something to look forward to. Then, more seriously, she asked, Mark, do you think we could reconnect? Yes, I answered honestly. Clara made her choices. I'm not going back to her. Good, she said with relief, because I'd like to finish what we started in the Middle East. I'd like that too, I admitted, but I need to handle a few things first. I understand, she said. Just don't make me wait too long. I won't, I promised. This divorce will take some time, though. I get it, she replied. Just know I'm here if you need someone to talk to. It's great hearing your voice again. You too, she said warmly. But my dinner's getting cold, so I'll talk to you soon. Promise. I teased. You'd better, she joked back. When I hung up, I felt better than I had in months. Deirdre still cared. That meant something. A knock at the back door pulled me back to reality. It was Lydia, holding a plate of lasagna. I thought you might be hungry, she said with a playful smile. Mind if I come in? Sure. Put it on the counter, I replied. She placed the dish down. I hope you like it. Or maybe you'd prefer something else. The temptation was there. But my conversation with Deirdre reminded me of what really mattered. As tempting as that sounds, I said, I'll have to pass. Her smile faltered. What's wrong? Clara gave you a hall pass. I pointed at the smoke detector. Clara's got a camera right there. Why don't you wave hello? Lydia's eyes widened. Are you serious? Yes, I confirmed. She installed cameras all over the house. Hired a PI, too. Maybe he's watching you right now. Her face paled. I had no idea. Come to my office, I said. Once inside, I handed her a printout of Clara's emails with Miles. She read in silence, then gasped. Oh my God. I didn't know, Mark. I swear. I believe you, I said. She played us both. What are you going to do? She asked, her voice full of concern. I'm filing for divorce, I replied. And I won't be with anyone until it's finalized. She nodded slowly. Can we still be friends? Of course, I assured her. But nothing more. Okay, Mark, she sighed. I'm sorry about everything. Enjoy the lasagna, she added before leaving. As I watched her walk away, I had to admit, she looked damn good in those shorts, but I wasn't going to risk everything. After Lydia left, I changed into my running gear. The lasagna would still be warm when I got back. After my run and a shower, I dug in. Cheesy, loaded with mushrooms and meat, just the way I liked it. It hit the spot. I washed the plate, grabbed a beer, and headed to my office. Before sitting down, I flipped off the camera in the front room. Then, I checked Clara's email. She had responded to the investigator, telling him to ease off for now. No other significant emails. I moved on to her finances. We had 3 accounts, one for each of us and a shared household account. I noticed Clara had saved a decent amount, but she had also paid a hefty retainer to attorney Allison Hargraves, a large payment to Smith Investigations, several charges to Victoria's Secret for lingerie I'd never seen her wear. Curious, I searched Hargraves' name. Turns out, Allison Hargraves wasn't just a family law attorney. She was an author known for promoting female-led marriages. Her book had stirred controversy, advocating for hot wife and cuckold dynamics. I bought the cheapest Kindle version, took a beer and cigar to the patio, and skimmed through the psychobabble. One thing was clear. Hargraves had a strong disdain for men, and Clara chose her as her lawyer. That spoke volumes. My phone buzzed. A text from Ernesto. I can arrange what you need, but it'll cost $1,000. I smirked. Perfect. I transferred the money from Clara's account, ensuring any trace would lead back to her. Then, I messaged Ernesto. Transfer is done. The next few days flew by. My routine became simple. Check Ernesto's updates. Monitor Clara's email. Work. Run. Eat. Unwind with a beer, cigar, and TV. I didn't care that Clara never called or texted. I was enjoying the silence. And whatever love I had left for her was gone. I only saw Lydia once after showing her the emails. When I returned the plate, Victor invited me to dinner. I declined, saying I had things to do. He seemed disappointed, but honestly, I was relieved. Lydia stayed away. I didn't need the distraction. The highlight of my days became my conversations with Deirdre. We talked every couple of days about life, dreams, pets, even my kids. The more we spoke, the closer I felt to her. And I realized something. I was falling for her. Eventually, I scheduled a meeting with Allison Hargraves. A receptionist greeted me, offering coffee, and soon I was shaking hands with Hargraves herself. She was polished, well-dressed, around my age. A wedding ring glinted on her hand. I couldn't help but wonder, what kind of life did her husband lead? So, you're considering a divorce, she said, settling into her chair. Yes, I am. And your name is Weston? She asked, scrolling through her computer. That's right. She frowned slightly. And your wife's name? Clara, short for Clarissa. She let out a slow breath. Well, Mr. Weston, I can't represent you due to a conflict of interest. I'm already representing your wife. I nodded. Figured. And I also know you only represent women. Seems a bit sexist to me. She gave me a hard stare. If you knew that, why did you come to see me? As a retired Army intelligence officer, I like to understand my enemy. She stiffened. Enemy? Is that how you see me? Pretty much, I said. I read your book. Saw your New York Times interview. You recruit your clients into your lifestyle, right? Is that what you did with my wife? Her expression remained cold. That's privileged information. Of course, I said. Did you know Clara was going to Columbia? And what she planned to do? She sat back, voice firm. That's also privileged information. I smirked, then glanced at her ring. I noticed you're married, I said. That chapter in your book on controlling husbands was interesting. Do you treat your husband the way you suggest? Humiliating and manipulating him? Her jaw tightened. That's none of your concern, Mr. Weston, and I think this meeting is over. I stood up. I'd like to say it was a pleasure meeting you, Mrs. Hargraves, but that would be a lie. As I turned to leave, I added, "We'll likely meet again. Have a nice day." I caught the receptionist smiling as I walked out, like she had overheard our conversation. The 25th anniversary. The day finally arrived. I took the day off, knowing it would be eventful. Early that morning, Deirdre texted, "Everything's in place." Later, a message from Ernesto. "Check your email." I opened the video attachment. The footage showed a dirt road in Colombia. A makeshift checkpoint appeared ahead. 3 SUVs approached. Armed soldiers stopped them. They searched the vehicles. Then everything changed. More soldiers arrived. Then, Trey and Clara were pulled from their SUV. They were handcuffed, taken away. A tow truck hauled the SUV off, and the other vehicles were eventually waved through. I sat stunned. Immediately, I called Ernesto. "Ernesto, what the hell happened?" "We planted the stuff as planned," he said calmly. "Just a small amount. But it turns out, Trey was smuggling large quantities of white powder and flea powder." My stomach twisted. "They found pills being loaded," Ernesto continued. "We backed off immediately, didn't want any cartel involvement." "Good call," I muttered. "Where are Clara and Trey now?" "They're both in jail," Ernesto replied. "It seems Clara might have known about the pills, but it's unclear how much." I exhaled slowly. "How long will they be held?" "The authorities have 48 hours to present the case to a judge. The investigation could take up to 90 days, but I doubt it'll be that long." "So the consulate knows?" "They should by now," Ernesto confirmed. "I'll keep you updated." "Thanks, Ernesto," I said. "This isn't what I expected. But if Clara's involved in trafficking, she deserves what she gets." After hanging up, I called Deirdre and filled her in. She wasn't surprised. "I'll reach out to some contacts in Colombia," she offered. "See if I can get more details." "Let me know," I said. "I will," she assured me. While I waited to hear back, I grabbed a trash bag and went through the house, removing every camera and microphone that Clara's PI had installed. I took the receiver and laptop from the attic, tossed everything into the bag, and set it by the driveway. Then I called Smith Investigations. "Smith Investigations, how can I help you?" a woman answered. "I want to speak to the head honcho," I said bluntly. Okay, sir, one moment." I heard the shuffle of papers, then the familiar voice of the man I had confronted at Yan's Bar and Grill. "James Smith, how can I help you?" "This is Mark Weston," I said, my voice firm. "Remember me?" A long pause. Yes, sir," he finally said. "Your client is now in a Colombian jail on pill trafficking charges," I told him. "I've removed all your surveillance gear from my house. It's in a trash bag in my driveway. If it's still there tomorrow, it's going in the garbage." His breath hitched. "Yes, sir," he said quickly, his voice tense. I hung up. Didn't need to hear another word. Clara was gone. But this wasn't over yet. The next morning, the bag of surveillance equipment was gone. I assumed Smith Investigations had picked it up. I didn't care. Soon after, Deirdre called. "I just spoke with the station chief in Bogota," she said, getting straight to the point. "What did you find out?" I asked. "Colombian authorities have been watching Trey since he arrived. He's connected to a major pill cartel. If Clara's involved, she could be looking at a long prison sentence." I exhaled. "How much time are we talking?" "At least 10 years, she replied. I shook my head. "Well, if she's guilty, she deserves it." "How much were they caught with?" "About 20 pounds of white powder and flea powder," she informed me. "Damn," I muttered. "Expect a visit from the State Department soon," Deirdre warned. "Let me know how it goes," she added. "I will. Thanks." After the call, I contacted the Mirador Hotel in Bogota. When Diego Espinoza answered, I asked to be connected to Paige Thompson's room. Paige answered nervously. "Paige, it's Mark Weston. Do you know where Clara is? It's our anniversary, and I wanted to reach her. Is she out with Miles?" A long silence. Then, her voice, shaking. "No, Mark. She's not." "Then where is she?" "Clara and Miles were arrested at a checkpoint for pill trafficking. Soldiers took them away. We were questioned and told to stay at the hotel. It's like house arrest." "Have you told Josh?" I asked pointedly. "No," she admitted quietly. "Paige, I'm going to talk to him soon." "Please, Mark, don't tell him. It'll destroy him," she pleaded. "Not as much as your cheating will," I replied coldly. "He deserves to know." I ended the call and immediately contacted Josh, giving him the full story and offering to send video evidence of Paige's affair. "Thanks for telling me, Mark," he said, his voice steady. This will be the last time she cheats on me. I sent him the videos and then scheduled an appointment with a divorce lawyer, 3 days from now. A couple of days later, my supervisor, Bill Hastings, called me into his office. A man from the State Department, Thomas Herman, was waiting. "Mark, your wife, Clara, has been arrested in Colombia for pill trafficking," Thomas said. "We can monitor her situation, but we can't interfere with local laws. She's also been placed on a no-fly list, so even if released, she can't return to the U.S. "How much prison time is she facing?" I asked. "Up to 12 years, Thomas replied. "After 7 or 8, she might be eligible for conditional release, but she won't be allowed to leave Colombia." He handed me a pamphlet on how to send money for her legal fees and expenses. Then, he offered to arrange visitation. I told him I'd consider it and would be in touch. After Thomas left, Bill closed the door. "Mark, this could affect your security clearance and job. Take some time off and get this under control." "I will, Bill. Thanks." Back home, I dug into Clara's emails, looking for anything suspicious. I found an exchange with Miles from 3 months before their trip. "Miles, want to make some extra money in Colombia?" "Clara, I don't know. What exactly do you mean?" "Miles, nothing risky. Just a business opportunity." She hesitated at first, then agreed. "Miles, good girl. Trust me, you'll be glad you did." I printed the entire email chain, saved it as a PDF, and added it to my thumb drive with other incriminating emails. Next, I reviewed the videos Ernesto had sent. Skipping past the physical stuff, I found one conversation from the day before they were caught. I noted the timestamp. "Miles, are you ready? Tomorrow's the big day." "Clara, I think so." She sounded nervous. "Miles, good. The product will be in our vehicle tomorrow morning, in boxes marked as medicine. We won't even have to touch it." "Clara, and you're sure we won't get caught?" "Miles, I've been on that road many times. No checkpoints. If this works, we can do it again and retire with the money." "Clara, sounds good to me." Bingo. I saved the video to my thumb drive and gathered my thoughts. Then, I emailed the kids to arrange a Skype call for the next evening. After that, I called Ernesto. "Damn," he muttered after hearing my plan. "So, what's next?" "I'm going through the rest of the evidence. I have a lawyer appointment tomorrow. Then, I'm flying down to Bogota to hand-deliver the divorce papers myself." "You're coming here?" he asked. "Yes, and I'm handing the evidence over to the prosecutor, too." He was quiet for a second, then said, "You can stay with me and my family. No need for a hotel." "Thanks, Ernesto. I look forward to Lupe's cooking." We laughed. I promised to call when I was ready to book my flight. That night, I arranged to send money to Clara through Western Union, draining her account. Then, I packed all her belongings into trash bags, including our wedding album, and stuffed them into her car. Finally, I called Clara's parents. I told them about the divorce and about Clara's arrest. They were heartbroken. "Are you sure Clara's involved in pills?" her father asked, his voice shaking. "Yes," I told Clara's father. "I have evidence, which I'll be giving to the prosecutor." They arrived later that day, took her car and belongings, and expressed their sadness over the situation. "Please stay in touch, Mark," her mother said, hugging me tightly. "I will," I promised. After they left, I sat on the porch, exhausted, with a beer and a cigar. Then Deirdre called. "Hey, how are you holding up?" she asked. "I've been better, but your call is lifting my spirits." We chatted, and I shared an idea with her. After a pause, she said, "That's the best idea I've heard in a long time. Let's do it." We ended the call on a positive note, and for the first time in a while, I felt lighter. The next morning, I met with my attorney, Lisa Hawkins. Unlike Clara's lawyer, she was sharp, professional, and direct. I provided her with the evidence and explained Clara's charges in Colombia. She nodded. "That should make things easier for us. I want everything except her 401k, her clothes, and her car," I said. "I've already drained most of her money. That's doable. How do you plan to serve her?" "I'll deliver the papers myself." Lisa smirked. "Bold move. I'll have them ready in 2 days." We briefly discussed the possibility of going after Miles or Hargraves, but Lisa advised against it. "It's rarely worth the effort," she said. I agreed and left after paying the retainer. That evening, I Skyped with the kids. "What's up, Dad?" Kyle asked. "I have some news," I said. "Your mother and I are getting divorced." Both kids were shocked. "Why?" Kyle asked. "Did you do something?" I kept my voice calm. No, son. But your mother, well, she's in a Colombian jail for pill trafficking. Are you sure she's involved? Rhonda asked. Yes. I have evidence, and I'll be giving it to the prosecutor. Kyle exhaled sharply. You're helping put her in prison? She broke the law, son. I can't ignore that. We've talked about the dangers of pills before. Kyle went quiet. Yeah, I know. It's just so screwed up. It is, son. But your mom made her choice and she got caught. We talked a bit longer, and I answered all their questions. It was a difficult conversation, but by the end, they understood. I promised to send them her prison address so they could write to her. We ended the call tearfully. Afterward, I called Thomas Herman at the State Department to arrange visitation for the day after I received the divorce papers. I'll set it up, he assured me. Next, I updated Ernesto. Do you know who's prosecuting the case? I asked. Yes, Ricardo Montoya. He's tough. Good, I said. I'll bring him some evidence when I arrive. We ended the call, and my last one was to Deirdre. She listened quietly as I filled her in. By the time we finished, I felt even better. 2 days later, Lisa informed me that the divorce papers were filed and ready for Clara's signature. With my bags packed and tickets booked, I grabbed my passport, picked up the papers, and headed to the airport. Before boarding, I sent Ernesto a quick message. On my way. Shortly after I landed in Bogota, Ernesto greeted me at the airport. We grabbed my luggage and headed outside. Where to first? He asked. To see Senor Montoya, I replied. At the government building, Ernesto parked, and I headed inside. A receptionist stopped me, but before I could explain, a well-dressed man appeared. I'm Senor Montoya, he said. And you are? Mark Weston, I replied, shaking his hand. I believe you're handling the case against my wife, Clara. He led me into his office and gestured to a seat. What information do you have for me? I handed him a thumb drive. This contains video of her and Miles discussing moving pills, plus their email exchanges. I've also included her email credentials, if you want to dig further. Montoya studied me carefully. You realize it's my job to put her in prison for a long time, right? Yes, I understand. He narrowed his eyes. So why are you giving me this evidence? Shouldn't you be helping her defense? I paused, choosing my words. Montoya smirked. Ah, she was having an affair with Dr. Anderton, wasn't she? Yes, I admitted. He leaned back. I see. Seeking revenge? I shook my head. No, I'm a retired Army intelligence officer. I can't ignore the law, even for my soon-to-be ex-wife. Montoya nodded. Understood. And you're here to serve her divorce papers? Yes. Use the evidence as you see fit. He took the thumb drive. Very well, Senor Weston. I'll review your evidence. He extended his hand. Welcome to Bogota. We shook hands, and I left. Back in the car, Ernesto smirked. How did it go? You were right, Montoya is tough. Ernesto laughed. You have no idea. He started the car. Let's head to my place. Lupe's been cooking all day. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. Now that's something to look forward to. At Ernesto's home, I met Lupe and the kids. Dinner was delicious, and afterward, Ernesto and I relaxed with cigars and aguardiente. The next morning, he drove me to the prison where Clara was being held. The place was filthy and overcrowded. Inside, she sat shackled to the table, looking exhausted. I set the divorce papers in front of her. You once gave me a choice, Clara, to take you back or walk away. You know what I chose. Tears fell. I'm sorry, Mark. No, you're not. You plotted with Lydia and Hargraves. You lied about everything. I don't want a divorce. Too late. Sign the papers. Reluctantly, she signed. I smirked. By the way, I'm taking your prepaid hotel reservation. I'll be spending it with Deirdre. She glared, but I just shook my head. Enjoy your miserable life. I walked out, leaving her sobbing. Outside, Montoya approached. You gave me solid evidence. It'll save time, which is why I'm not charging you with conspiracy. I blinked. What? Thanks to Ernesto, nothing illegal was purchased. The money you sent went to a charity for widows and orphans. I smiled. Thank you, Ricardo. We shook hands. Justice is coming for Clara and Dr. Anderton, he said. Adios, Ricardo. Back in the car, Ernesto smirked. All good. Yes. Let's get to the airport. We shook hands. Take care, Ernesto. My best to Lupe and the kids. At the Ambassador Hotel, Deirdre met me on the day Clara was supposed to. We finished what we started in the Middle East. Lying in bed, she whispered, "I've fallen in love with you." I held her close. "I've fallen in love with you too. Shall we make it official?" I didn't hesitate. "Will you marry me?" She kissed me deeply. "Yes, Mark." Clara and Miles were convicted and sentenced to 12 years in prison. Miles didn't last long. Rival cartel members got to him. Clara's life in prison was hard, with few visitors. The kids sent letters, but kept their distance. Paige lost her job and went through a brutal divorce. Lydia got pregnant, paternity unknown. After Deirdre and I married, we sold the house and bought a new one. She happily became a homemaker, and though I offered her a job at Acme, she preferred to focus on our home and her cat, which, of course, I didn't mind at all. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you soon.